So what's going on, everybody? The Iceman here on the Jeffrey Rose Iceman V2013 YouTube channel on this Friday, June 24th, 2016. Under the weather. I got flu-like symptoms. Can you believe this? We're almost into July. But anyway, my buddy here on YouTube, Rainmaker247, and we converse a lot on Facebook, and we were talking about wrestling. Everybody talks about wrestling, how it was in the old days, but when we usually talk about that, it's about comparing how it was back then and how it is now. Now we're talking about wrestling in a little different point of view. Now I was talking in a video about Roman Reigns suspension, and let's face it, there's so much media today, there's so much internet news, and everything gets on the internet. Nothing escapes anything. Now, we go back into the old days, say if this was back in the 70s, 80s, if Roman Reigns got suspended, we wouldn't, before internet, we wouldn't have known he got suspended. They would have sold it as an injury for him getting hurt and him being gone. But nowadays, the minute something goes on, it's on the internet and everybody knows about it. Much like the situation that was going on with Paige and Alberto Del Rio. Now, because of the Total Divas show, when it first happened, everybody's thinking, okay, wow, Paige got arrested for like disorderly and whatnot and all this stuff. She had a big fight with Alberto. We wouldn't have heard nothing about this whatsoever back then because it's irrelevant. But it's possible this was being done for a segment for Total Divas. So this is my point. Nowadays with the wellness policy in the WWE, anytime somebody fails a drug test, it's put out on the internet, and then you're suspended for 30 days. You're off their main shows, you're off TV and whatnot. And what they do is they either about it, or also they'll have a reason why you're being gone, or you're just gone and there's no explanation whatsoever. But somebody like Roman Reigns, I'm sure they're gonna probably sell it with some sort of injury, because they're not gonna on a live show say, oh, he's gone for 30 days because he failed the wellness policy. They're not gonna do it. But like I said, back in the old days, something like this occurred, if it were implemented, which it really wasn't back then. Excuse me, apologize for that. They would just cover it up and sell it as an injury. There's just a lot of things, you compare because of the internet to what went on back then. Nowadays, nothing's kept secret at all. And it gets to the point, too, that even like Dave Meltzer will predict what is going to happen on a live event before it even happens. And this man's always right. And this also takes a lot away from when we watch a show. Meltzer did predict that Seth Rollins was going to defeat Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank. He did not predict Ambrose, but he did predict Rollins to win, and he was right. Anybody that follows any kind of these wrestling news sources, there are some very viable sources. NoDQ.com is another viable source. And when you follow them, and then you know that most of the time what they tell you is going to be true, doesn't it take a little bit away from when you're watching that show? I mean, wouldn't you just rather not know anything that's going on going into that show? For one, I am one of those guys that I would like to go into a show not having any kind of idea of what the wrestling news sources are saying. It's easy enough to say, okay, I'm just not going to read them. I'm not going to read. But, how many times have we gone, just to check out results of a show, that just happened because we didn't get to watch it. And then you see a headline, new X Division crown for TNA. The minute you see that, it gives it away. I mean, this is the problem with these news source sites. I mean, it's not the way it should be, not the way they present it. They need to find better ways so the people that don't want to know the spoilers don't get to see them firsthand in a headline. But then again, with these news sources, what they'll say is we need a catchy headline to attract attention. So I see how it goes both ways. But for me, I like the old school type of stuff. Um, I like going watching something, and if it was 30 years ago, and say something happened with Roman Reigns, I'd like to have him just sell it with an injury, have him gone, and then he comes back. I don't need to know that he failed a drug test because I, as a wrestling fan, would just like to sit back and enjoy watching the show without knowing any of the politics that are involved. And I think nowadays we know more about all the politics that are involved. And when we know this, it sort of takes away from watching these events as they take place. I mean, that's just one man's opinion. But anyway, a big shout out to Rainmaker 247. And those are my thoughts and my opinions. I mean, I think the internet has really hurt wrestling as well as promote it. I mean, there's pros and cons as in any other, subject. There's always pros and there's always cons. But it is what it is. So anyhow, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Hopefully I feel better soon. But I wanted to put this video out there for a buddy of mine. So we'll see y'all next time. This is the Iceman. Peace, brothers.